advice on bylaws and to answer any questions that you have about legal issues.
And my name is Sherry Kirk. Can you guys hear me? I switched to my headphones. Okay. I am a senior management auditor with the County Auditor's Office. My role here is to be a resource to the commission. If you need any information internally, you can reach out to me and I can go out there and find whatever it is you need within Washington County.
Thank you all. Also, I'm recognizing that this is the first time to meet each other. And so if I'm just gonna, just based on who I see on my screen, just ask that I'll say your name, and if you can share if you're a new to the commission, if you have been a previous commissioner, if you can let us know that. And your role in terms of your position, your job, and then one reason why you have taken on this responsibility that it will brought you to be a part of the file. So again, just based on my screen, Brianna, you can start.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brianna Candom, and I had the pleasure of serving on the commission last year as the vice chair. And in my day job, I am the chief HR officer for Providence, Portland, and I also have oversight of Providence Hood River. And one thing that compelled me to try to join the commission again this year was just the amount of things that I learned through this process about how boards operate and the work that the commissioners do, as well as the board for Washington County. It was just really intriguing to me, and just thinking about how do we support that work with our own personal expertise in the workforce. And it was a great way for me to share and contribute. So that's why I'm back. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Heike, did I pronounce that correctly?
It's pronounced Heike, like Heike football. That's the way to remember it. So Heike Kirkendall Baker. And I also participated with Brianna on the last committee. And I was interested in joining again because I really enjoyed my experience. Number one, I enjoyed the interaction that I had with the other participants on the committee. And I also have a passion around compensation. And my day job is I'm the Associate Vice President of Lewis and Clark College.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me again. And now, Victor, the classroom path.
Yes. Hi, David. And so my name is Victor. I am interested in the committee just as a quick history. I was born in Mexico, but I grew up here in Washington County. Just in 1994, up the street, we used to pick strawberries. Now it's Intel. This about a year and a half ago, I became a U.S. citizen, and I thought, well, what a better way to get back into doing something for the community, but to be engaged. And I found this committee very interesting, and I hope that I'm really happy to hear what Brianna and Heike have to say, because that's kind of what I'm looking for. To learn, to give, and maybe learn and get a little bit back. I currently am a financial analyst for the federal courts. I essentially help execute like a $220 billion budget, and we do everything from auditing to just simple contracting with CJ criminal justice panel attorneys across the country. And I'm just eager to learn and work with you.
Thank you, Victor. Monica.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Monica Santoyo. This will be the first time that I serve in a commission, and I'm honored to be part of this committee. The impetus in joining and applying is to learn as well as to serve our local government. My background is in accounting and finance. I have a consulting practice as a fractional CFO or controller. So I typically review a lot of salary information, research, and work with people and figuring out what's the salary that makes sense for our employees or contractors. So thank you. I'm very happy to meet you all.
Thank you, Monica and Christian.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, David. Christian Calderon. I've been a resident of Washington County for a couple of years, and this is my first time serving in a type of committee like this. I guess what I wanted to get out of, is doing something service-wise. I guess let's start with my role. I'm an assistant professor of management at Pacific University. I teach human resources, compensation is there, and some other courses in management. And we do a lot of service in the university, but typically it's at the college level, university level, and I felt that this was a great opportunity for me to engage with the community and hopefully put my 2 cents to use. So thank you.
Thank you again, each of you. Just again, I can't emphasize enough the contribution you'll be making and the investment of time. So we want to be respectful of your time and really want to support the work of this commission. So gracias, thank you on behalf of the County Administrator's Office. And then I want to turn it over now to our County Counsel, Tom Carr.
Thanks, David. And Chuck, can we put up the presentation? It should be coming up. There it goes. And can we go to the next slide, please? The one before that. Before that. Okay, so I've been allocated about 40 minutes to talk with you today. These are the topics: the role of the Salary Commission in history, rules and guidelines and bylaws, and then there are several subtitles under the rules and guidelines. I'm going to walk you through a PowerPoint. These things are never good if I just talk and you just listen for a long time. So if you have any questions or comments or thoughts, please feel free to interrupt me. You can always use the raise hand function or wave at me or just shout at me if you want. I'm a lawyer. I'm used to being shouted at, so it's all good. So I'm going to just go into this. It shouldn't take the full 40 minutes if there aren't a lot of questions, but we'll see. I find this stuff fascinating. So can we have the next slide, please, Chuck? So your role is defined by Charter Section 30. And just a little history, which is part of my job here. How we compensate our legislators has been a challenge probably going back to Roman times. We know that the British Parliament was compensated back as long as the Tudors. There's a town of Dunwich paid its member of Parliament in herring in 1463, but there was a movement that it was an honor that shouldn't be paid for in the late Victorian era, and so at the turn of the 19th century, there was a movement to reduce the pay, and then the beginning of the 20th century that reversed with the realization that if you don't pay your legislators, you only have people who can afford to serve for free, which really is a very small and not representative demographic. So it's pretty well accepted. In fact, our Constitution in Article 1, Section 6 requires that members of Congress be paid. Although for political reasons, which is one of the reasons you're here, the political reasons, they have not had a pay raise since 2008. So 15 years without a pay raise. And that's because they can't agree on it. So Washington County has gone through several iterations of how we pay our legislators. And for a long time, it was considered a semi-volunteer job. So they weren't paid very much, particularly the district commissioners. Before 2008, from at least 1980 to 2008, the chair was paid starting at $27,000 up to $31,000 with an adjustment for inflation. So that was in 1980. So by 2008, it was substantially more. And district commissioners were paid $6,000 again with an adjustment, $6,000 a year with an adjustment for inflation. By 2008, they determined that that wasn't necessarily adequate, that district commissioners were working more than the few hours that they expected, and that they still, the inflation adjustment was made by the Budget Commission, which included members of the Board of Commissioners. So there was something of a conflict of interest. So in 2008, they went to a strict system where the chair was paid 80% of the salary of a circuit court judge, and the district commissioners were paid 40% of the salary of the chair. So that took out any inflation adjustment, because the adjustment was made by the state legislature whenever it raised the salary of a circuit court judge. And it didn't require any work by county staff or elected officials. So this was the case from 2008 to 2020. In 2020, your commission was created. The idea being that, one, the legislature doesn't always raise the judges' salaries. There was a note in the file that said the chief judge of the Supreme Court went to the legislature 5 straight times asking for a pay raise for circuit court judges and was rejected. So it still has a political element to it. So the idea, the creation of the Salary Commission was intended to take that political element out of it. And there's 2 elements to this that are really important to remember. One, because you are independent, you are not influenced, theoretically, but I think practically, by any political motives. But you're not also influenced by this. If you Google legislative pay, you will get many sarcastic articles about how the legislature is raising its own pay again. And that puts them in a very difficult position. I was formerly an elected official. I never got a pay raise in my 8 years as an elected official because my pay was tied to the mayor's, and the mayor's never wanted to raise his salary in a political season. So it's hard in your business and in my business. If you want to attract talent, you have to pay a market rate. And so one, to get people to run for office, they need to be compensated. And also, unless you pay people a living wage, a respectable wage, you can't expect anybody but people who are retired or independently wealthy to serve. And in my last job, the legislators were paid $400 per meeting, and they were all rich retired people, except for 1 or 2 small examples. But none of them had a job, and none of them needed to work for a living. Actually, where we were. So this system is designed to encourage a diverse representation on the commission, to recognize that they work hard and to pay them for it, and to attract good candidates. Next slide, please. So in 2020, after the voters amended the charter, the commission adopted Resolution Order 20-143, and that sets out the rules for this commission. So it gives you the discretion to set the final salaries of the board until the next commission convenes. So whatever you set will stay in place for 2 years. It instructs you to convene at the earliest practical time, and you can continue to convene until you've issued a report that the Board of Commission accepts, and then it's provided to the county administrator, who just puts it in the budget. The commission cannot change your report. They have no authority over what you do. You could say they get paid nothing. You could say they paid $1 million, and which would be different results, but they couldn't change it. You have complete autonomy on that issue. Next slide, please. So the first salary commission was appointed January 19th, 2021. And you see Casey, Biana, and Heike were part of that commission. The others chose not to serve again. The commission met 7 times in 2021 between January and April, and the board accepted the final report on May 4th, 2021. Next slide, please. So that's the first section of my presentation, the history and background of the Salary Commission. Are there any questions before I move on to the next part? Okay, so I'm going to move on. So you are now public officials. So you have all of the restrictions on public officials. You cannot use your position for a personal gain. You cannot vote if there's a conflict of interest. That conflict of interest extends not only to you, but to your relatives. And in Oregon, we have 2 concepts of conflicts of interest: an actual and potential conflict of interest. A potential conflict of interest is where an action by a public official could benefit that public official. So if there's some other factor that would have to come on where there could be a subsequent benefit. An actual conflict of interest is where it would, where there is no uncertainty, where there's an actual benefit. There's a clear benefit. If you have an actual conflict of interest, you have to recuse yourself. Law requires recusal. If it is only a potential conflict of interest, you have discretion after advice from counsel on whether or not to recuse yourself. It's unlikely that this will come up here, but it's important to recognize that what we do as public officials is scrutinized, and public's trust depends on us not doing things in our own personal interest. So Washington County takes the rules of ethics seriously. There is a guide for public officials. I have the site up there, the URL. We'll make sure you have a copy of this PowerPoint so you can access that if you're interested in looking through it. It's written because there are thousands of public officials in the state of Oregon, and everyone needs to comply with these rules. Next slide, please. So this is something I want to call out again, probably not going to be much of an issue with this group, but something that is very important to us. This is policy 301. We take workplace harassment and treatment of our employees very seriously. This is one of the broadest policies I've ever seen. We have sanctioned folks for violation of this policy. It applies to volunteers. Again, I don't think it's going to come up, but there have been situations in which I've been involved where members of volunteer boards have been abusive to staff, which I don't think is an issue, but it's important to remember. What we try to do is to create a workplace that is fair, civil, and respectful. That's very important to the county, and we decided that we highlight this with everyone. So you're not being singled out. It's something that is incredibly important to us. Next slide. So this is on political participation. These are two very important things. One, you can't use your position for political purposes, so you can't support somebody at a meeting. You can use your title. You can, if you endorse someone, you can say you endorse a member of a salary commission. That's permissible. You can't do anything though on public property or using public resources. But also on the other hand, you cannot be asked for a political contribution as a condition of serving on this board. So, no, I'm sorry, not asked. You can't be forced to serve. You could volunteer. You certainly don't lose your political rights, but a board member cannot say to you, well, I appointed you, so you now have to work on my committee. You're protected under those rules. If anything like that happens, let me know. Again, there are Secretary of State guidelines on political participation by public officials, and these apply to all of us, everyone on this call. Next slide, please. Okay, now we get to the hard stuff, public records. Every document that the county has is a public record. Anybody can make a request under the public record law for any document. We are required to produce those documents. We have a challenge in that you don't have county email addresses. So when we get a public records request, we have a tool that lets us search all county email addresses. So we go search for something. So my recommendation is that you create a separate email address for use for this commission. That is that you go to Gmail and you create, say, victorsalaryycommission@gmail.com and use that for this so that you have all of those records in one place and you don't have to go searching your personal email. It is highly, highly unlikely that we will get a public records request for any emails from you. But if we do, the county takes transparency very seriously, and we lean towards disclosure. And we have had to search board members' personal phones for text messages that they sent. We will do that if people ask. The requester is required to pay for that sort of thing, but we do it. So, and there are many exceptions to the rules of public records. However, most of those rules have exceptions to the exception, and that you get them if there's a public interest. If we decide that a record is not to be produced, that it's protected by an exception, there's a right of appeal to the district attorney. So it's a very easy appeal. You just write a letter to the district attorney and say, I disagree with this decision. And then the district attorney makes their decision, his decision, and we can then appeal that to the circuit court. And then we actually have one right now in front of the Court of Appeals. So I urge you to be careful about record keeping for this. Try to keep things organized. Try not to intermix your personal records. My advice is always, you have to do what you have to do your work. So everybody has their own way of work. Now I sit next to the county administrator at board meetings, and she has a little book into which she makes notes, which scares the living daylights out of me, because if anybody ever made a public records request for that book, I'd have to try to read her handwriting, which is not something I really want to do. But it's the way she works, and I'm never going to tell her not to do that. I just am scared that I might have to do it. And as I look around the room, the commissioners also have little books that Jerry Woolley has like a college rule notebook that he writes in. And I may be the only one who notices, but it scares me that those. So to the extent that you can keep your records clean and discreet and separate, it will make all of our lives easier if there's an issue. Now, as I said, it's really unlikely. 99% of the time, we don't get public records requests for any of our records. It's only the ones that, but when we do, it's a problem. It's a challenge, and we have an incredibly broad responsibility to respond. So in terms of public records, keep them separate, keep them clean. And to the extent that you make a handwritten note that's not something like reminding yourself of something, record it somewhere and get rid of the handwritten note. I don't keep notes. There's something you can get rid of a transitory note, but if it's your notes, you have to maintain it. So please do that. We're not going to check on it. I'm not going to go to your houses. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. But again, it's your duty under Oregon law. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're subject also to the public meetings law, and as you know, Kevin put out a notice 72 hours in advance. We are being broadcast on YouTube right now, so anybody in the world can watch us. But let me talk a little bit about what a meeting is and isn't. So in our normal lives, and I want to stress that this is not your normal life anymore. This is a public meeting. In our normal lives, we send emails around and make decisions that way. And you could, if I'm on the board of a club, we will even take votes by mail, or we'll all agree that before the meeting, this is what we're going to do. That doesn't work under the public meetings law. What the intent of the law is that the decisions are made in front of the public. So you know the old school of a smoky room in the back where the legislators went and made a decision and then just went out and voted for it. And they still do that, but they're exempt from the public meetings law to some extent. But we don't do that. As Washington County, we have the discussions in the room. There's no backroom deals. You'll never see our commission come out and have decided something in advance. They take this very seriously. And what that means, you can't, one thing you'll see there, I said, do not reply all. That's something that's important to remember. If Christian sends out an email that says, I think we should talk about this, you can send an email back to Christian saying, I agree, because two people can always talk. That's not a meeting. But if you send it out to everybody, then you start having a meeting. And it's a slippery slope. So my advice is never do a reply all on a substantive matter. Certainly, can you make a meeting on July 21st? Even that might be a problem. But I would say try not to reply all. Let staff send you information, contact staff to do it, but don't try to have a discussion, because once you have a discussion, then you could be violating the public meetings law. And this other concept of serial meetings. So a serial meeting is where member A says to member B, we should do this. Member B says to member C, I agree. We should do this as member A. So that suddenly you have a quorum that's decided something. You haven't done it as a group, but you've done it serially. Now there's no, there is as yet no law in Oregon that says that that's wrong. There is a case that's been overruled, so it's not really law anymore, but we all use it as guidelines. It was overruled on other grounds. that says serial meetings are wrong. I hate to be the one that would have to defend that case. So we take the position that you can't have a serial meeting. So that, again, if you think, well, we're going to decide this before, you're probably violating the law. So it's really, really important that the discussions take place in public in a way that the community can see them. If you have any questions or problems with that, please let me know. I'm always happy to provide support. The window into democracy that the public meetings law provides is really important, and it's one that's central to our philosophy at Washington County. So I'm not just saying we should do this because it's the law. We do this because we believe in it. We believe the community should be able to see what we do, and we don't believe in backroom deals. Next slide, please. So this is the final part of my presentation, and I've only taken about 20 minutes, so about half of my time. So you have plenty of time to ask questions, discuss, make fun of me, do whatever you want. So the bylaws, so the bylaws were adopted by the last commission. That you have the authority to change them by majority vote, and I actually have some recommendations for changes that I'll get to in a second. So the rules are you have 5 members plus 1 alternate. Victor, you are the alternate. The alternate member automatically fills any vacant position. If there's more than 1 vacant position, the board fills it. The chair may remove any member who misses 3 consecutive meetings unless the chair determines that there was good reason for it, or that the behavior will not reoccur. The chair may remove a person for cause. The meetings require 72 hours public notice. Actions require a majority of a quorum. And that's some language I think we should change, because a quorum is 3. A majority of a quorum is 2, but a majority of 5 is 3. So technically the way it's written is a little confusing. I assume it has been interpreted that it takes a majority vote to act, and hopefully you get a unanimous vote on what you decide, but it's one of those legal pitfalls that I'm not crazy about. So I would suggest that we change it to a majority of the members present, because you'd have to have a quorum, and that could be, it could be 2 or 3, depending on how many people are in the room. The alternate member has voice but not vote. The alternate member may participate in discussions, just does not have a vote at the end. Next slide, please. The commission selects a chair and vice chair to its first meeting. The alternate member cannot be the chair or vice chair. The chair sets the meeting date and agenda. I was a little surprised by that. I mean, I haven't recommended changing that, but it's something you might want to consider changing. Usually it would be the commission that would set the meetings, not the chair. This sort of gives the chair, the language of the bylaws gives the chair unilateral authority. The chair may establish temporary subcommittees. The commission may amend bylaws consistent with the charter, section 30 and resolution order 20-143. Next slide. So here's some suggested amendments. The paragraph, Article 4, paragraph A says that meetings of the commission shall be held at least quarterly. Well, if that's true, then we've been violating it for the last 1.5 years, because the last meeting of the commission was in April of 2001. Obviously, you don't want to meet quarterly, you meet frequently. So I suggest that we amend that to the commission shall meet promptly after appointment by the Board of County Commissioners as often as the commission means necessary until the commission's final report is accepted by the Board of County Commissioners. So I recommend that that is amending the bylaws so that they conform to actual practice. And then Article 4, paragraph E says, any action may be approved by a majority of a quorum present in a meeting. I would suggest that we change that to any action may be approved by a majority of the members present at a meeting. Next slide. I believe that was my last slide. Yep. Any questions? Chuck, can you take that down, please? I'm not seeing any. Kevin, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you for that. So, so at this time, you as members of the Salary Commission we can either, you can have discussions on these bylaws with the amendments that Tom presented, or if you want, we can just table that to the next meeting and move on to elect a chair and vice chair. So it's really in your discretion what you would like to do at this point on that topic. Okay, we'll see. No, we'll just table this to the next meeting and move on to, we'll go to the chair and vice chair, and then we'll discuss the meeting and timeline. So is there anyone that wants to make a motion of who should serve as chair and vice chair? So you can either, if you want, make it one motion of, I suggest, if someone for chair and vice chair, or you can have it as two separate motions. So floor is open for anyone that would want to make a motion for chair or vice chair, and I'll leave it to your discretion.
I'd like to propose that Brianna take the chair position because she was the vice chair in the last commission. And so I think she has experience in that role. So I would recommend Brianna take it if she's open to that.
I am open to it. So is that, there's a motion, but does it need to be seconded?
I would second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion on appointing Brianna as the chair of the Salary Commission for 2023-2024? Okay, so we can either do the vote, I can call on you individually, do a roll call vote, or I can just ask you all those in favor and all those opposed. It is just a matter of preference of what you would like to do.
I think just asking all those in favor and all those opposed.
You got it. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes 4-0. All right. Now we can open it for vice chair. So, Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to you to accept any motions.
Sure. Are there any motions for the vice chair position or any questions about the vice chair position?
Actually, I have a question. What was the vice chair? What was the responsibilities of the vice chair the last time?
I would really say it was a backup to the main chair if she wasn't available. Still participating as a fellow committee member, commission member, but there weren't any delineated responsibilities other than stepping in for Casey if need be. Are there any motions?
I'd like to make a motion and propose Heike, since she has experience having been here last year.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Heike, are you willing?
I like the way that Monica used the same words that I, yes, I'm willing. Thank you very much.
So hearing that there's a second and Heike is willing, all those up in favor, if you could please raise your hand or say yes.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. We have a chair and a vice chair.
Congratulations, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair. So the next topic is to decide your preference on your meeting schedule and the timeline. So with the materials provided last time of where we met, first meeting at the end of January, the commission wrapped up everything at the end of April and presented the final report in May. And the commission met every 2 weeks on a Thursday in the afternoon for that time. So now it's up to this new commission to set what is your decision on when you would like to meet and a time frame that we could arrange for most of a quorum of the members to meet. So Madam Chair, over to you.
Thank you. So just based on experience from doing this a couple years ago, my perspective is the 3 to 4 month time frame from January to April gave us adequate amount of time to connect, have information gatherings, and come back and present information as a commission. And it didn't feel rushed. It just felt like a nice cadence and flow for us to present a solid recommendation to be presented. I think we presented it ultimately in May, that was supported by the board. So that being said, open to any questions or suggestions, but I think kind of going from now till April would be my personal recommendation. And Heike, anything you will contribute?
I completely agree with you. It didn't feel rushed, and yet it felt like we had enough information. The time period gave us enough time to gather the information and to share the information. I thought it was a good time frame.
Thanks, Heike. And Clerk Moss, does it typically work for your schedule or the rest of the staff schedule to have the meeting Thursday at 3 p.m.? Is this kind of a good time frame for the support staff?
Yes, this time frame works for my schedule, being the second week, and then however you want to go forward, but staff will make the time to accommodate whatever the wishes of this commission.
Thank you. Would there be a motion or anyone willing to put forth maybe a combined motion for duration and cadence of our meeting?
I can make a motion that we have the meeting every other Thursday from 3 to 5 if necessary, and up through up through April.
Thank you. Is there a second? See a second for Monica. Thank you.
Second.
Being there's a motion and a second, any discussion?
I think that the only thing I'd like to add is I also serve in some committees at the university, and they happen to be typically on Thursdays at 4:20. So it depends. Is once a month. So I'm not sure. It may be a conflict, but I guess I won't know until we set up the meeting. So I just want to let everyone know that there may be a time where I miss it if there's a conflict.
Thanks for bringing that up, Christian. Is there a certain week of the month that your meetings occur on, or does it vary?
It varies. I mean, they tend to be at least the third week of the month, but that's on Thursdays. I mean, I know that you were doing Thursdays before. I mean, are other days available, or because like I said, I could try to make it work, but I just want to let everyone know in advance.
Yeah, I think we could continue to have discussion with the current motion on the table. It's for every other Thursday, but I think given where this meeting falls, we may miss that Thursday, but I haven't gone through each month to validate that. So if that's the case, is that something you'd be comfortable moving forward with?
I mean, I can. Like I said, I'll definitely try to make it work. I guess I just want to let you know there may be a meeting that I just have to miss.
Yeah,
if there's a conflict.
I did a quick scan. It looks like April 20th would be kind of the first and only conflict with the third Thursday. So we might be okay.
Okay, excellent. Great. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? All right, well, let's take a vote. All in favor of conducting the meetings every other Thursday from 3 up to 5 p.m. Going to April 2023, if needed, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Motion carries.
Madam Chair, before we move on to the next discussion on materials, I want to take this moment to introduce Christine Adams-Wanderberg, the newly elected county auditor, to just give a quick introduction. So Christine.
Hi, committee members. Hey, thanks so much for having me. Really interested to see your work and just want to also thank you for your time and your expertise. We really, really appreciate it as a county. One of the interesting things about having elected official roles is some of the barriers to entry are basically the pay. A lot of them are volunteer positions. We are lucky in the county that our positions for the Board of Commissioners essentially is paid. So we certainly want to have something that is reasonable and makes it so people do want to run for these offices and are not put under a huge financial burden. So I just want to thank you for being here, for serving the county in this way, and just want to tell you how much I appreciate it. And I'm sure the board appreciates it as well.
Thank you, Christine. So the next item is materials. So what was included in your packet was the complete final report that was presented to the board on May 4th that included the agenda item, the final report draft by the commission, as well as their materials of the 2 spreadsheets of an internal comparison created by some of the committee and an external comparison with other jurisdictions that was provided. So this part is really up for your discussion, and this is where Sherry with the County Auditor's Office can serve in any role of any information. So this is just a starter block, so you can use this as your first kind of agenda item for your next meeting as to what materials may you want to know, who you may want to interview. The previous commission held interviews with all the current commissioners and the former commissioner who, when there was a changeover there, there was also conversations with the chief human resources officer on compensation. And I believe those were the only interviews the commission chose to do, but you can conduct any others or request any information that will help aid you in rendering a decision for the board.
Great. And Kevin, are you able to display those materials, or not sure who's behind the?
Yes, I can display that. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so here was the final report. This here that was included in our agenda, and so this was approved. And then if I scroll through it here, this is a summary of the final report that was generated, and with the recommendations of the salaries from the previous to the current as a starter block for the commission, and then listing their summary of how they came to their decision. And then also here is what I was talking about with the spreadsheets, looking at the different counties in our area, and then also the internal comparators of looking at I flipped those, of looking at the inner ones of different departments and what the commission manages. So that is included in the packet there as well for you to review and the public, so you can use it as a starter block to what you want to decide to go from there.
Great. Thank you for displaying that. And I recall what we did as a commission was to split out into small groups of 2. I know we couldn't have more than 2 people participate in the review for both internal and external comparators. And Tom, I don't know if there's any specific guidance on that, or if we can continue with that approach just given the information you presented earlier, or just want to validate that.
Yeah, Brianna, 2 people can meet. 3 people's a committee, and a committee you can meet, but then would have to go through the public notice and public access rules.
Okay.
Which we can do if you want to create a committee, but and I prefer that you not call them committees if it's just 2 people.
Yes, thank you. Heike, were you going to say something?
I was going, but this probably leads to where you're going as far as the internal and the external, because I was going to ask, is part of the group that has the internal, are we going to be able to get the updated salaries? Because I think that the information that we had was based on the prior information, and so we would need some of the updated information.
Sherry, is that something you could address?
Yes, I can be your contact, and I can do what I reach out to HR and see what I can do to get the information to you. You can find my email in this meeting invite. Just go to scheduling and my email will be in there. And I respond quite quickly.
Thank you.
And just to back up what you just said, I thought that was a good approach, because each one of the internal really focused on the internal and allowed the external to take a look at market factors that were impacting pay in the other organization. And I enjoyed doing the internal, so I would like to be on that group again if we go that direction.
You read my mind, Heike, and I want to validate that we don't need a motion or anything formal to create those smaller groups to do the work. Kevin, I see you kind of shaking your head.
No, you do not.
Good. Okay. All right. Let's get into it then. So in terms of internal, that's really looking at what Washington County is paying, and we looked at roles throughout the county that could be comparators, and we're going to partner with Sherry on that. Would there be anyone interested in partnering with Heike on doing that work and that review? Christian.
I could do it.
Okay. So I have Christian and Heike on the internal comparators. And Monica, I saw you come off mute. Were you interested in internal, or are you open?
I'm open to doing either one.
Okay.
Thank you, Brianna.
Okay, I will put you down for external. And I know Casey, who's not on the call now, she supported the external review as well, if I'm remembering correctly. So I will, we'll need to just confirm with her, but I think she would be great to have as part of that review. And with those groups, Victor, I want to make sure that you're included in the work. So what happened in the past is we did a lot of collection and compiled that information and presented it through our commission meetings, and there may have been follow-up or other work that comes as a result of that. And I'm hoping we can leverage your expertise there, Victor, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I was just gonna ask, and I noticed that the alternate didn't come back from last year. So I was just gonna ask him if in your experience to, like, obviously, I'm personally, I want to be engaged, but in the past, how engaged were alternates, you know, if you, maybe I'll offline, I don't know. I just kind of never seen this type of committee set up that way.
Yeah, I would say the alternate was very engaged throughout the process, especially in the dialogue that the committee had. And she had actually served on a similar commission in a different state, if I recall correctly. So she had a lot of great insight. So I think, you know, you'll be able to contribute as much as you'd like. So we'll make that happen. But yeah.
Okay.
So with that, Sherry, you'll help with the internal data, and then
Yes.
Thank you. And then I will confirm with Casey that she's willing to contribute to the external data component. And just for the sake of numbers, we'll have Heike and Christian on the internal and Monica and Casey on the external, and then we'll work through the necessary steps from there. But I think it would be helpful to review the materials that were gathered, because a lot of the information we were able to locate for the external data from other county sites. And I believe we referenced that in the actual materials that Clerk Moss provided. So we can definitely leverage the learnings from the work that was done by the previous commission. And I don't think there's actual, well, are there any questions or anything that anyone wants to discuss at this point, or just thinking about flow or anything that might clarify the process as we move forward?
Thank you. Yes, I'm wondering, as we get to update, right, the internal and external sources that are comparative to Washington County, is the expectation that we'll have that updated for our next meeting? Or how much time are we going to allow for us to come back to review this information?
That's a great question, Monica. And I think what I'd like to do is create a timeline for us, just thinking about the work we have set forth and hitting some milestones. With the external data, it kind of depends on when people are able to meet and convene, and it might be difficult to do it by the next meeting, but it would be great the following meeting if we could present out our findings. And we'll have to get the schedule and kind of see where that date falls, but not our next, but the meeting after that. And then Sherry, just given the connections and the data you need to pull, giving you enough time to do that for the internal work. But I can look, I'm pretty sure we had a timeline last time that I can leverage and update. And if it's appropriate, share it at our next meeting and present it and get the feedback of the commission to make sure we at least have some milestones for us to reach throughout the process. Does that answer your question, Monica?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
I just wanted to say that if I have to go out and connect with somebody, to make sure you allow me to have enough time for that person to respond back, because they're still trying to do their own regular job at the same time.
Totally understand. Yeah, that's definitely our intention. I think with the estimate, it would be around a month worth of time, but we'll talk about that at the next meeting once we have some dates in front of us. But yeah, definitely hear you, Sherry. Appreciate that.
And Brianna, I wanted to raise as well, because it may be taking a look at the information before the next meeting and start getting our arms around it. But I think it may be valuable to get additional information to see if any of the positions changed, or if they're still comparable positions, or so to make sure that we have enough information to do the comparisons.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that means interviews, or I don't know what that means, what that looks like yet, but it may be good to come back with our questions based on the information that we have so far.
Yes, that's a great point, Heike. And we can build that in, because I'm really curious, just given the work that was done in 2021, what's the feedback of the current board, and seeing if we can interview them. We also, as I think Tom mentioned, we interviewed, or Kevin may have mentioned this, we interviewed a couple other roles within the county that was able to give some context around the work that we're doing. So if we can get those lined up over the next couple of meetings to inform the work that we're doing. And if the commission is open to that, I would just like to request now that we meet with the commissioners or the board members to interview them
not at the next meeting, but at an upcoming meeting, and that'll give us some time to formulate some specific questions to ask them as we gather the data and look at the different components for this work.
Yes, absolutely. We can arrange that. I can help arrange that with the commissioners.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, so if there's no other questions, I think the takeaways, and Madam Chair, I'll work with you on creating the next agenda. What we have is on our agenda so far, a review of the timeline of the next meeting dates, of what to discuss at them, approval of the bylaws once we have those amendments on there, and I will add the PowerPoint to the packet as soon as we're done with the meeting. Allow time to discuss the comparators and develop a list of potential people to interview for information.
Yes. I think that was everything. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you, and I hope, you know, the work that was done before really helps ease our way as we go through this process, but really excited about the work. Victor, were you going to say something? I noticed you came off mute.
Oh, no.
Okay. All right, Clerk Moss, I'll pass it to you.
Okay, so we'll just announce, so we're going every other Thursday. So the next meeting will be Thursday, January 26th at 3 p.m. So I will send a meeting invite and put it on our schedule and start drafting this agenda to share with you, Madam Chair, and I'll work with you and also with Sherry of any materials that are needed that will be included in the packet that'll be posted on our iAgenda website under the Salary Commission. So it'll have all the agenda and all the attachments for not only the board members or commission members to review, but also the public. So, and we will post that agenda just for a week in advance. So we will probably post that agenda by the 19th in the afternoon to give everyone a week to see, here's what's on your upcoming agenda.
Great, thank you. Well, I will call the meeting adjourned right at 4 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you all online.
Thank you, everyone.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you, David.
Nice to meet everyone. Looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye, David.